Alright guys, so in today's episode we're going to install a oil cooler and a relocation kit kind of together, and hopefully that will keep the oil temperatures down while we beat the ever-living snot out of that car, and maybe it'll live just that little bit longer. Alright, so the filter relocation kit is this kit from Transdapt here, and it comes with this piece that goes on the back of your motor and the piece that holds the filter, which for me, that's out in my car already. And it does come with these hoses and fittings so that you can install the kit all on your own without having to go and spend a bunch of money on AN lines and oil coolers and all that stuff. So if you do want to do a relocation kit, this is the kit from Transdapt. I did buy this like 5 years ago. I don't know if they still offer it, but if they do, there is the part number for it if you guys are interested. Alright, so here I've got about 10 feet of -10 AN line. And in the box, I've got all the fittings and the oil cooler itself. So before we head out to the car, I'm going to get all the fittings into all the pieces of everything, so that all we got to do is just plop it in and measure the lines and figure out where to mount that thing. That'll probably be the hardest part, is mounting this. So, well, figuring out where to mount it. I got a pretty good idea. I'm going to mount it down so that you can just disconnect the lines and drain it of oil. Okay, so I got all the fittings into the parts that I've got sitting here. So I guess the next step is to go out into the car and start mounting this stuff into it. Alright, so we're out at the car, and this nice hole left by the power steering pump, that's where I stuck the filter. And so I just got to put the AN adapter fittings in the bottom of it, and the catch can's kind of in the way. I'll probably have to move that to work, but that's where I mounted it. I just drilled some holes and put in nut certs for M8, and I just ran some old intake studs in there with some 13 mil nuts, and that's how that's fixed to the back there, and I have it pointing up so it drains back and it's nice and clean and easy to get to. So yeah, I think the hardest part of this whole install is actually probably just going to be figuring out where to mount that thing in the front, finding a good spot to do that. I think that'll be the most time consuming part of my day. Once that's installed, running the line should be all easy, and putting the hose ends on the hose. Everything here is -10. If you're curious, these fittings are a -10 to -10 ORB, and then all of these fittings are -10 to 1/2 inch NPT, and then all the hose ends for how I plan on running it. So right on, I'm gonna get started figuring out where that thing goes and getting those fittings into the bottom of that filter housing. Alright, so I've got the oil cooler mounted down there. There it is too, yep. So it's just down, sitting in front of the air conditioning condenser, basically straight under here in the front of the car. There's the bracket there. So I've got that under, and there's a view of it from the front bumper and a view from under the car. So there it is. I got the lines running downwards so that I can drain both these lines and the cooler every time I change the oil, so that I'm not left with a bunch of oil trapped in here. When I change out to new stuff, I can get it all out. So I got the lines running up. This line here comes from the filter. This line here goes back into the engine. Then both lines come up here, run kind of under there, and I wound them under the motor mount bracket, and I put a little bit of cut some vacuum line to kind of protect them there. And then they run here, and yeah, that one runs over and under and around to the motor. That one runs into there, and then under here we've got the one that comes from the motor and comes into the filter, and then that's what they look like coming off of the back of the motor. Now this adapter plate, I did have to turn down this little bit. It was fouling on the bracket, so I did have to clearance this, which was kind of a pain. Luckily we have a really shitty lathe at work that was barely able to do it, but it was able to do it nonetheless. And so here, so this one goes out to the filter, this one comes in from the cooler. So that's all done, built, and ready to go. I just got to build oil pressure, make sure there's no leaks. But other than that, this is another job done and dusted. All right, I got the car back on the ground. I built oil pressure just by basically flood mode, as some cars call it. I don't know what it's called in this one, but you just go into your fuse panel there and pull the PCMB fuse. It's a 5 amp fuse. It floats around the box throughout the years, but pull that and it'll kill ignition and fuel, and then you can go and crank until you get oil pressure, and then you can fire it up so you can build oil pressure without firing the motor. So I got that all good to go. I built up 42 pounds of pressure by doing that. There's no leaks under the car. There was one leak, but I just forgotten to tighten a couple of the fittings coming off the back of the motor, snug those up, and all good in the hood. Oh, and a brief update from the power steering delete video. I got a shorter belt, and now I have at least, it was about 1 finger width between them. Now I've got 2 plus a little bit more, so that worked perfectly. It's pretty much maxing the tensioner out to the maximum that it can be open, but that appears like it'll work. There it is. It's a 5K 635 AC Delco. It's actually one of the ones offered for the SOHC version of the car with no power steering and no AC. They offer us this belt for it, so it is available on Rock Auto. So that's another project done and dusted and out of the way. So on with the next one.